Well, Amy, 7 people took the stand today on behalf of Raye Smith. Many of those were family members who teared up when talking about Kelsey and their memories. But a lot of the testimony today also focused on Kelsey's stepfather, Michael Porter, who is already going to prison for his role in the girl's death. The day began early for defense attorneys. With boxes of evidence in tow, they headed for the courthouse for day 2 of defense witness testimony. Rochelle Smith testified she and her sister Raye have a close relationship, and she never suspected Michael Porter would hurt Kelsey. Yet on cross-examination, District Attorney Richard Smotherman asked her when abuse was confirmed, what did Raye tell her happened. Several times, Rochelle replied, "I don't recall."
When the DA's office would question them, then they went from being people that knew every little detail of Kelsey's life to people that didn't know anything.
Misty Smith, Raye sister-in-law, testified she was there when Kelsey sprained her ankle at the zoo. The defense contends Kelsey's broken leg came as a result of overcompensating for the sprained ankle. But when questioned by prosecutors, Misty admitted she told the OSBI Kelsey complained about her foot the night before she went to the zoo.
They've called experts. They've called no people with actual knowledge, just some of her family.
Emotional testimony also came from Charles Piercy, a preacher in Meeker. He talked to Michael Porter's odd behavior at the hospital the day Kelsey died and how he was throwing himself on the floor in hysterics. Piercy began to cry when he told jurors how after Kelsey died, Raye rocked her dead baby, a moment he says he'll never forget. But he admits he doesn't know if Raye is guilty.
I could only give what I observed. And what I observed was that she was very loving, very caring, and just very comforting to her poor little baby.
Now, we also heard today how Michael Porter tried to commit suicide after Kelsey's death. The Briggs family says all this testimony doesn't really matter, and it's just the defense's way of trying to shift the focus off of Raye. Now, as for this trial, we know defense attorneys probably have about 2 more witnesses to call in the morning. The judge told jurors today to be prepared to get this case tomorrow.
Coming to her defense, family and friends take the stand in the Raye Smith trial. Good evening, I'm Jamie Soretta.
I'm Andrew Spino. As testimony starts wrapping up on this, the 7th day of the trial, Fox 25's Britton Follett tells us it appears as if someone else was on trial. Stories first on Fox.
They're on the stand to defend Raye Smith, but 6 of the 8 people who testified talked about the way Kelsey's stepfather, Michael Porter, acted in the days following her murder, saying in hindsight it was suspicious. What they do not mention is that Porter has never been convicted of Kelsey's murder.
That's their strategy, is just to say he did it.
While Raye lawyers focused on the hours after Kelsey's murder, prosecutors asked witnesses about the months before.
They've called no experts. They've called no people with actual knowledge, just some of her family.
2 of Raye sisters told the jury they would trust their own children with her. Her sister-in-law says she loved Kelsey like she was her own. None of them believed anyone in Raye house was abusing Kelsey. But when asked if Raye ever talked with them about the bruises, they could not recall.
When the DA's office would question them, then they went from being people that knew every little detail of Kelsey's life to people that didn't know anything.
Raye's sister says everyone was watching her. Raye's life was like an open book. A book not read very closely because under the eyes of at least a dozen caseworkers and family members, someone murdered the 2-year-old.
Any type of abuse or killing of babies is just horrible. And a little baby is so innocent and so precious that however it happens, it is just ugly.
On October 11th, Raye's family and friends say Michael Porter did not console Raye at the hospital. While she rocked the dead baby, the jury will have to decide if she did enough to protect.
He's the one that will judge no matter what this jury decides. He knows all things, and he will judge all things.
The little girl with 2 broken legs had 2 funerals because the morning after Kelsey was murdered, Raye went to the courthouse to file a protective order against Kelsey's biological father, Lance, and Kelsey's grandmother, Kathy. The Briggs had not seen Kelsey in months. When prosecutors asked if it was because Raye Dawn did not want them at the funeral, her friend told the jury Raye Dawn didn't need to say that. It was assumed. Back to you.
All right, Britton Follett, thank you. One witness you will not hear from is Judge Craig Key. He's the judge who allowed Kelsey to go home with Raye Dawn, where she was ultimately murdered. The state argues his presence would create a circus in the courtroom and would become a trial against him instead of Raye Dawn Smith. You can read Britton's notes on all the witnesses who've testified. Just go to our website, okcfox.com.
An emotional day. It only took about 2.5 hours for the jury to find Raye Dawn Smith guilty of enabling child abuse, and the jury recommended a sentence of 27 years. Raye Dawn Smith broke down in tears and covered her face, crying in the courtroom. Smith was taken out of the courthouse in handcuffs. You could hear her screaming, "I don't understand. I love my baby." The jury found her guilty of enabling child abuse. You'll remember Michael Porter, her ex-husband, is serving 30 years for enabling child abuse. Kelsey's family on her biological father's side had this first reaction.
I'm glad they did it. I'm happy with their decision. I feel 27 was, if anything, life. You know, I think she deserved what she got. And I'm very thankful for the jury for what they did, what they went through to deliver this. I know it was very hard work on them. They spent 2 weeks of their life here listening to all this, and I'm very grateful for all the work that they did.
And Kelsey's father says this day is justice for his daughter, Kelsey. Back to you.
Amy, what was the reaction of other people who were in the courtroom time the verdict was read?
Well, some of Raye Dawn's family members were very upset. Her sister actually stood up. She was crying hysterically and screaming out. She had to be comforted by another person and cried the entire time until Raye Dawn was brought out of the courtroom.
Amy, short deliberation by a lot of calculations. 2.5 hours doesn't seem like much for all the testimony that was given. You were in the courtroom. Were people surprised by the length of the deliberation and how quick the verdict came back?
It seemed like people expected the verdict to actually come back today. There was a lot of evidence in this case. There were 2 doctors who took the stand and said there was confirmed abuse against Kelsey, even saying battered child syndrome. So they looked at pictures and pictures of bruises, of 2 broken legs, of doctors saying, yes, this was abuse. It was tough after hearing all that evidence to think that there was not abuse in this case when you have experts saying that. And so a lot of people did think that there would be a quick conclusion.
The verdict is in, and we now know her fate.
You'll recall Raye Dawn was on trial for the child abuse death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kelsey Smith-Briggs. New tonight, KSGI-TV Shelley Mills joined us live from Bristow with the latest.
Well, Keely and Monica, the jury came back and they have declared that Raye Dawn Smith is guilty of enabling child abuse. Now, I'm joined now by Lance Briggs, the father of little 2-year-old Kelsey. This has been a very long process for your family, not only a week and a half of trial, but a lot of things before this. So what is it like to finally have this verdict?
Well, you know, a little bit of stress is relieved. You know, I feel like the jurors gave her what she deserved, and I'm glad that this part is over.
And do you feel that, in any sense, that this was a fair decision? They've given her 27 years. Do you think that that's fair, or?
Yes, I mean, Michael Porter received 30 years, and they both had a hand in Kelsey's death, and 27, I believe that's fair.
Now, I know that I wanted to just ask you real quick. You said that, you know, even though there is some fairness to this, what's not fair is that Kelsey will never be back. But does your family have a sense of, I guess, that justice has been served?
Absolutely. That's been what we've been after since day one, since the day she died, was to get justice for Kelsey. And I feel like justice has been served.
All right. Well, Lance, thank you so much. I know this has been just a difficult day, difficult time for your family. We really appreciate you joining us here tonight. Well, Monica and Keely, I do want to mention, as I said, that the jury did come back and they did recommend a 27-year sentence for Raye Dawn Smith. Now, as they handed this verdict down, you could hear Raye Dawn scream out, "I don't understand." She said she did not hurt her baby. She was very upset, crying very loudly. As you can imagine, there was a whole lot of emotion in that courtroom today. The closing arguments happened just earlier today. The jury went into deliberation about 2:45. It was close to 3 hours later that they did come back and hand down this guilty verdict.